of the easiest finder fees that I ever got was helping someone sell a classic old car that they had. And it was a relative, and he had this car sitting around for years, and he was moving it around in and out of trailers, and finally he wanted to sell it, and he was having trouble finding a buyer for it. So I told him, hey, if I help you sell your car, will you give me a finder's fee? He said, absolutely, yes. Now, in a lot of cases, I would recommend that you get something in writing, but in this case, it was a very close relative, so I trusted him completely. And I created a flyer, simple flyer. This is a 2-page I made with a word processor, LibreOffice, I think. You could create something similar just with Google Docs. And I had a picture, did a caption, did a title, and then just wrote copy about the car itself, did a little bit of research. He had an asking price. It's always good to have an asking price. And he was motivated. So it's always good to say those words, motivated seller. And then I had any prospects contact me. So it had my contact information on the flyer itself. And what I did was I just figured out who might buy classic cars. So I went from classic car lots to classic car buyers. And I was emailing quite a few different places, and finally I remember seeing a neighbor of mine driving a classic car, and I remembered a conversation that I had with him, and he was talking about his cars. So I thought, well, what about this guy too? He's local, so the odds maybe are low, but maybe he wants to add one more car. So I got a hold of this guy, and he said he was interested. And so I connected him with the seller of the car. Now, when you earn finder's fees, you're not a broker or anything like that. What you're doing is you're connecting a buyer and a seller, and then you're getting out of the way and letting them do the deal. So in order to earn finder's fees, number one, you got to find a buyer for someone who wants to sell something, a real buyer. You need to get an agreement from the seller to pay you a finder's fee. In this case, it was verbal. I usually recommend getting something written. You link the buyer and seller together, and then you get out of the way, let them do a deal. You're not a broker, you're not in the way of the deal. And then, because you never want to just rely on one buyer, because usually they fall through, it's a numbers game, you want to go and use that time to find more prospective buyers and send them to the seller. And then if a deal gets done, you get paid. So in this case, a deal got done between my relative and the buyer. It was local, and all of a sudden the seller, the relative, shows up one day at my house and hands me several $100 bills and says, thanks for finding me a buyer. So that's a quick case study of a finder's fee that worked out pretty darn well.